Okay, how are we all doing? Are we hanging in there? I know it's probably a bit exhausting, and this is stuff, the reason we're videoing this is so you can go back. You can press pause. If it gets overwhelming, you can go back and you can look at it again. Look, the family of origin stuff affects us. It affects every single one of us, every day. We find our stuff. Now, we don't always sit there and go, oh yes, that's my family of origin stuff. Ooh. You know, all we're really recognising is there are certain behaviours that play out, good and negative ones, and they come from somewhere, all right? Whether it's our environment, our family of origin, that's where it is. As you can see, our tree now, we've made it look a little healthier, you know. We've sort of put some stuff up here. So it shows you, what we're trying to do is physically show you that out of the family of origin, out of our root system that we've got going down, straight down here, you can have some negative behaviour, but you can also have some magnificent things going on in your life. You can, you know, you can begin to trust, you can have health, you can be compassionate, you can be independent, you can have intimacy, you can learn and develop and grow all these particular things, and it all comes out of where you actually are putting the roots down, what you're putting your roots into. So the reality for you and for me, for every one of us, is that we choose now, as you get older and more have more ability to kind of define what's important to you, you define where the root system is going to be. You know, if you think you want to be in a negative behaviour, you'll begin to form strength and roots towards that thing. If you think you want to hang out with positive people. Now, for me, over this past probably 2 years, I've really begun to get, now some people say, oh, Phil, you know, you're sort of, you know, moving away. Yeah, I am moving away from groups of people that are so negative and so, I guess, gossipy all the time and kind of always, you know, pulling down, always seeing the negative side. It's not about denial. It's just a matter of, I want to hang out with people that are allowing their root system to go into some incredible soil, rich nutrients and accountability and positive leadership, you know, focused, taking responsibility, wanting to make a difference, needing to grow, needing to learn, needing to be a contributor, wanting to do all these sorts of things. They're the kind of people I'm finding myself really attracted to, wanting to hang out with more of those kind of things. It's not about denying the negatives, it's about giving it less nutrients, because the more we feed it, the stronger it gets. And so what we've done on here for you is saying that some of the more positive fruits can begin to change your life. You know, I heard an interesting thing during the week. Somebody was saying, I struggle with depression, and I said, oh yes, so how do you actually overcome it? And they said, I walk. And I said, wow, what does that mean? And they actually said to me, they go out when they're feeling, you know, really crappy and depressed. They actually go out and walk. I said, what difference does that make? And they said, what happens is on the sole of your feet, you know, if you've done reflexology or anything like that, you realise that all the parts of your body are connected from parts of your feet. You know, nerve endings in your feet. It's quite bizarre. And as you walk, it stimulates all those parts of your organs in your body and what have you, and it creates an endorphins, causes your body to release endorphins that make you feel better. So they just walk. How cool is that? You know, often they say, you know, if you're depressed, go and do exercise. Well, half the problem is actually just getting to the gym. You're so depressed you can't even get in the car. But you might want to take a little walk around. So kick your shoes off for a moment if you're feeling a little depressed, and scrunch your feet up on the carpet and let's have a little wander, you know, through and make you feel good. So, or wander around on the carpet, you know, and get those good endorphins kicking through, because it'll affect the way that you hear what I'm about to say to you. So, powerful times for bridge builders at the moment. Some of these young people, I know for some of you as parents, they're coming home and the kids are giving you a hard time. Hey, your family of origin, you know, and you're saying, shut up about the family of origin, you know. Yeah, you see how you make it, you know. We've done the best we can. This is not about shame and guilt, okay? This is not about that. This is simply saying that you have gaps in your world. I have gaps in mine. We all do, and our kids do too. And if we can recognise it, if we could talk about these particular things to a point where we can come up with a strategy, a solution or something to change that, we're just going to relate differently. And we can say, you know, that's how we used to be and this is not how we're going to be, because we've introduced things into our lives that have helped change us. And hopefully this little sesh for you right now is going to make some sense to you, because it did to me, and it was quite enlightening. So Again, our tree is looking very heavy and looking cool. Now, the interesting thing about I studied during the week was about this idea of a taproot. And I remember way back in the day, I was a landscaper for a couple of years, and I used to do tree lopping. And when I did that, there were certain trees that seemed to have a root system that was some of it was pretty sparse, kind of spread out, and that was purely because the DNA of the tree was the nutrients were no longer down here; they're at the top. So they spread out like that. And there was this idea of a taproot, a root system within a tree that was the centre of the tree, and it began to dive all the way down, became the main root system for the tree, and then the feeder roots went off from that and began to draw nutrients from elsewhere. But and sometimes something in our lives, depression, anxiety, fear, all those sorts of things, can become this incredible taproot. They become this strong root system. The interesting part is I learned that a carrot is actually, or a turnip or a beetroot, or all those kind of things, a radish, they're actually a taproot in a smaller form, and because a carrot, for example, has a large sort of occupiable space, and it has this little tuft of green out the top, and if you let a carrot grow in a bad environment, it begins to split out, and that's why they create carrot boxes a certain depth, and so they get a certain length of carrot, and blah 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 blah. So fantastic idea, and yet they've figured out that this particular type of taproot is edible. It's good for you, which is quite hilarious, considering that sometimes we can put our root system into some good soil and remain strong, firm in that, and it's good for us, just like a good carrot. So just want to encourage you, begin to look at, again, this is not about regressing into your childhood and all that sort of stuff and staying stuck back there and go, oh, if only my parents, I wish. It's not. We can stay back here if you want to. I don't want to, and I don't want you to, and that's the whole point why we're videoing this. Tonight, we're going to talk to you about a solution that may help you. I'm going to give you just 2 or 3 little tips that can begin to help you move forward. And for all of us, we need stuff introduced into our world sometimes that might make us a little uncomfortable, might be a little painful. And I learned an interesting thing, and I don't know how many of you have done it. When I was in the gardening game, they had this idea called grafting, and that's where they would take a particular plant and they would cut it in a certain way. Now, there's 2 types. Well, there's probably several types of grafting, but there is a way that they do grafting, and that is that they will just cut the top of the host, let's call it that. There's all kinds of, for you that are gardeners, you'll know all the terms, and this is about everybody understanding, not just, talking about the technical terms of gardening. I'm no Berg's backyard here, right? But the idea is that I could cut this particular, let's call it the host, the main root system. This is in the ground still, right? So this bit, and it's stuck in the ground. I cut here, and then I sever it into 4 pieces, and the piece that I want to connect, I just shave, a bit like whittling down a piece of wood. You just shave the ends off, you insert it into the 4 pieces, you bind it over the top, hopefully with a rubber band, because it's got to allow it to grow again. Then they bind it, and sometimes they use wet cloth or they use foil and then plastic, and they put a date on it so they know exactly when it was bonded. And about, a month or 8 weeks later, you'll begin to see, it's usually late in the winter season they do grafting, because they're looking for the spring kind of burst and for it to take. And it's not so traumatic on the tree. The other one you can do is called a bud, where they call it budding, where they actually just take a slither out of the side of a particular host, and they graft a piece on. They just open the bark, put the graft in, and then the same process. They bind it together, and after a period of time, if that should take, that becomes another source. The trunk itself becomes the source of nutrients to this new bud. And the reason we do that at times, which is quite fascinating, if you look up on the internet, I think the most famous grafted fruit tree is 57 fruits grafted into one particular host, one particular trunk. I think that is just incredible. So sometimes when you go to the nursery and you see something that looks like a lemon and an orange, it's true because they might have grafted that particular plant. Or you go to a rose bush and you see it's got, white flowers on this side and pink flowers on that side. That's called grafting. They've grafted in because the host of that is so healthy, and so the DNA of that particular root system is fantastic. So they really love it, and that's why they use it. So they disregard the old stump because it was lacking in some way. Now, the challenge with anything to do with grafting, and this is going to be applicable for you in a moment, is that when you graft something in, it takes a season before it grabs. Is what I'm saying is, the whole process here that we're talking about around the family of origin, don't try and fix it all tonight. When you get this video, go, right, that's it, everyone sit down, that's what we're going to be doing. Everybody, family gathering, family meeting, this is how it's going to be. Don't do that. Look at you first. Begin to adjust you first, then graft things into your world. Now, the challenge for us is if you don't know how to graft, what are you going to do? You need to find a gardener, somebody, an expert. Now, for some of you, a tip for you is that's where counsellors come in. That's where pastors, people who you can confide in, a good friend, somebody that's reflecting to you that you're settling for less. This is the bar. Come on, they're the kind of people. Somebody that says, "Oh no, it'll all be all right. Don't worry about it. Don't change. It's all good." They're probably not so healthy for you right now. Okay, so if you're wanting to move a new behaviour into a new behaviour, or have a new thing growing in your life, then it's important that you bring the right person in, an expert in their field. It's really important. And so the step-by-step process is simply a graft comes in. If it's a full stalk graft, they normally will leave the old branch on for a full season, and as that new fruit begins to bear, then in the next season they cut that old fruit off, that old branch off, and then it's done and dusted, and this thing becomes this kind of weird looking little thing but bears fantastic fruit. And so my encouragement to you is this: sometimes we have to take a little bit of a knife to our lives and try and cut out some of the stuff. And that is very painful. But allow yourself some time. You go, you know what? Yep, I've lived for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, whatever it is, and this behaviour is so entrenched in me, so ingrained in of who I am. I don't know if I can change this. Well, you might not be able to. That's the reality. The reality is you might not be able to change it with your own abilities. You need a gardener. You need somebody to come in alongside you and graft into you something that is new, a new way, and give yourself a season to practice it, to rehearse it, to get it right, to tend it. And in the initial stages of grafting, there's a lot of maintenance. There's kind of, let's check it, let's look at it. It's all good. It's a bit uncertain. Will it take? Won't it take? No. So give yourself a little bit of leeway to kind of relax around that. And so one of the things we spoke about, and what you'll begin to see, of course, is that the fruit that was in a negative environment begins to die back. It begins to go away because you've actually begun to push all the nutrients into a new graft, into a new way of doing something. And while you might have this little kind of bit in you that's kind of a crick, or a knot in you, the bottom line is you know that over the next period of time, that particular graft is going to grab, it's going to take. And so let me explain it this way. If you've always desired to do something or be something and everyone around you is saying, you'll never be any good at that, but it's something that's kind of really within you, then go out and find a gardener that's good at that. If it's gymnastics or if it's music or if it's singing or whatever, find somebody that's excellent at it and begin to graft that into your world and see what fruit bears out of that. And in time, people will just turn around, which is the bizarre part, people turn around and go, I knew, she always had that in her. He was always wild like that. I remember as a kid, but no, thanks for your support, not. So, and then as you begin to pour all of your nutrients into here, you will begin to look at your root system and think, you know what, I'm so glad I went down this pathway. I'm so glad I've begun to look at some of these things that I've struggled with for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. You know, some people will die with some of this fruit hanging on their tree. It's just as simple as that, because they'll never take the time to actually stop and look and say, you know what, I'm not the be-all and end-all. I haven't got it all together. And just saying that the excuse that, well, it's the way I am, then that's the way you'll stay. You know, and if you're okay about that, that's fine. That's entirely up to you. I don't want to be like that. I want to surround myself with people, and these young people that we're dealing with want to surround themselves with people that are grafting new things into their life, that they don't want to live like this. You know, you can look at your kid and say, why are you so antisocial? Well, maybe you sort of encourage that environment because you'd never let them go out and try some things. I'm not saying be bad. I'm just saying go out and experiment in the world that's so vast. This generation is global. They're not local. They're global thinkers. They travel, they backpack, they are internet-based. And yet, all of that technology, especially in Western society, there's a lot of young people struggling with social isolation and social fear of they're afraid to go out in case somebody might reject them. So my encouragement to you is one little step at a time. For your young person, if it's your child that you're looking at this video for, I want to encourage them, get along to Bridge Builders. We love them. We call it the fruit bowl here, you know, because there's all sorts of fruits and we're all nuts, you know, and so they come along here and hopefully they'll find a place where they find, people accept me for who I am and I'm not a weirdo. Even if they are, it's okay, we like weirdos, and so, because they create a little bit of spice. So the challenge for us guys in this series, and there's probably only going to be 2 more nights on this, or 2 more sessions for you guys on this. I could spend all year. We could talk about, all right, drill this right down, let's talk about this, let's talk about that, and I'm happy to talk offline on that about you. But right now, a couple of steps for you. So you've heard these 4 or 5 sessions and you go, oh man, how do I start moving? How do I do this? There was a great movie out several years ago called Baby Steps, you know, and it's just like that. It's just like, come on, let's just take a little step at a time. Don't try and change your spouse or your kids or your mum and your dad or whatever. Change you first. You. Look at the stuff that exists within you that you're not happy about. Write it down and then look at, on a sheet of paper, just simply, a little sheet of paper like this, divide it in half, write down all of this. Now, probably you'll come up with a great list on the negative side and not so great on the positive side. Everything that you have on the negative side of your page, I want you to look at a strategy of how you might combat that, do something different to counter what's on this side. Now, if you don't know how to answer that, take it to your mate, your gardener or whoever, and say to them, is there something I can do that stops me from doing this, right? Baby steps, one thing, and begin to practice it. Begin to allow the season of grafting to kind of build that into your life. Practice. When my sons first started driving, they were terrible. You know, the car was bunny hopping. It was this nasty experience. But now they get in their cars and away they go, and there's no problem. They're fantastic drivers. And so that's the same idea. Please ease up on yourself. Take a breath. Pause the video. Take a breath and go, oh, that's right. I can't encourage you enough to just don't try to fix all of you in one moment. Just take one aspect of your life and try and look at it and realise that we all came from a family, regardless whether it was broken, mixed, all together, whatever. I have come across some young people that have grown up in the most wonderful home, and somehow they made decisions in their adolescence and into their young adulthood that the parents are standing there going, what on earth, who is this person? So you still understand the power of self-will. So how to change? You might be this. Simply a person that is determined, that says, you know what, I'm going to stop doing this. When I gave up smoking, I smoked for 11 years or something like that. I woke up one day and I just said, you know what, I'm done. That was it. I was just able to self-will it and it would be done. Now other people struggle with that. They don't do it. The reality for me is you might have that capacity as a person. If you don't have that capacity in this particular aspect that we're talking about, whatever it is, one at a time. Don't take on the whole tree, all right? You'll die under the weight. look for a gardener, look for a counsellor, somebody that can help you develop, or a coach, somebody like a personal coach, a life coach, something like that, a pastor, a minister, or a counsellor, or just a really good friend. Ask someone to help graft a new way of thinking, a new way of believing in you about a particular thing, and give yourself time to practice that. It's the only way you're going to bear different fruit. All right, so there can still be some great fruit. Don't throw all of this out. Don't lop this off and just say it's all bad. There are things in you that are excellent. What we're trying to do is graft in something that makes you bear different fruit, and hopefully this fruit tree becomes an incredible experience that everybody wants to come and say, "Oh man, I'm so glad you went on that journey. Can you teach me? Can you show me? Can you help me?" And you'll be able to be a great influence. And so this session for you is simply about grafting. Just simply allow something else to come into your world, intersect your world, and begin to change the way you do things. Now, over the next little while, in the next 12 months, you might totally cut off all of these things over here because this is bearing such great fruit. That's your decision. For some of you, it'll just be a tweak. It'll just be a bud. You'll just be adding a little bit to you. So I want to encourage you. Hopefully this is helpful to you. If you've got any other questions, again, email me, phil@bridgebuilders.com.au, or you can Facebook me if we're mates.